Hello Saviors. In this video, I will discuss the current state of the game and will it actually survive 2021. But before we begin, I just want to shout out to everyone that subscribed recently, and I want to preface this to all of you that you should definitely continue playing this game, but be mindful of the time placed, or rather invested into the game, and I will cover these points as to why you should be mindful. That being said, let's start. As you're all probably aware, this game has its ups and downs. It has gone through a rebuild that brought back a lot of players and the introduction of seasonal servers, which in my own view has been very beneficial. This is how I got started. Now the game itself has a lot of nostalgic interest, and people do play for that very reason. The developers are the same as Ragnarok Online, and as you know, Ragnarok Online was one of the very best, if not the most amazing MMORPG that I've ever played, which players in Brazil still play and compete in the War of Emporium. But reality is reality. We don't have those mechanics in Tree of Savior. We have Guild Wars, but to be honest, it is to just secure areas to do Boruta raid and apply taxes in the city, and that's really all there is to the PvP aspect of this game. Ideally, this can be further improved by having specific nodes that may eventually allow people to farm silver. This is very similar concept to Black Desert Online. Now, speaking of silver, I actually understand why IMC removed silver drops. It is a way to combat people that were abusing the system, botting, and RMT, real money trade. But in truth, a lot of new players getting into the game were already faced with overwhelming content. And I get asked this a lot by new players is, I'm so lost, what do I do at this point? But then again, this really depends on the gamer themselves. The whole game is really a giant tutorial until you reach level 430. And at 430, you start focusing on crafting the endgame gear that is required to participate in endgame content. Endgame content such as challenge mode, singularity, DCP, raids, Moramponia, Glacia, they all have a specific gear requirement, which in part is very convoluted and is a silver sink. But going back to my point, new players cannot really obtain endgame gear when they cannot obtain silver. And I'll tell you why. When I first started in the seasonal server, every character that I rolled that got to level 430 and above, while killing mobs and questing, I would have at least 50 million silver each time. While at the same time, I was using my scout, my SR, for bulbous cave farming, and I would net about 100 million silver each day. And this made endgame gearing so much easier. And when I look back at this, I feel sorry for the new players entering this game because now they have a huge gap to reach to get to where I am. Right? So I guess the question is, what are the new players? So what about the new players, right? What about the general population? How are they going to reach our level? And to be honest, I believe it's firmly impossible unless they fall into the gacha events like Letitia Cubes, or hope for IMC to release a full enhanced and transcendent item, which is very limited. And if you look at the current New Year's event, it's absolutely abysmal. It's a guaranteed, but you're competing against 5 S rank items. Even if they gave those items, you're faced with the Icaring mechanics. And to be frank, it's very confusing. A lot of new players give up at that point. The Icaring mechanics exist for one reason only, and that is to force players to rely on magnification, and magnification items are time gated from the TP store. In other words, pay to win. And even if you wanted to enhance an item further, the anviling, the cost, the golden anvils, it's a silver sync, and again, time-gated items that requires the TP store. Every step you take along the way to reach endgame requires TP. So then what do people do? They real money trade. I don't encourage this at all. And IMC is against this. And I've seen people do this at the highest level, even though they whale, and they still get banned, and they still get their items confiscated. But let's try to define what qualifies as RMT. If I wanted to trade an item for $5 to a local friend that I know personally, that's playing right next to me in a LAN party, or is it really RMT if I'm just gear sharing between alts? You know, this is a gray area that IMC consistently fails to define. And it truly hurts innocent players when they're starting because they really have no idea. In particular, recently there was an exploit, right? An exploit that allowed players to generate duplicated items in the guild storage. Another exploit required a DDoS attack on the channel, which crashed the channel and resulted in a duplicated item. And that would go in the market and innocent players would buy it. Innocent players would get their silver gone because it's already gone to the cheater. And IMC would remove the person's item. And IMC would say, cough up the money or we won't give you the item back. Now granted, this never happened to me. I did lose one item, which is a purple Monarchs card, which I don't know how. It was from the guild storage. Again, this goes back to a glitch or a bug in the system. And to be honest, IMC never disclosed anything as to how this came to be. IMC has a really poor way of handling consumers and their player base, and it's taken unfortunately, a dictatorship approach. It's basically my rules or don't play anymore. If there was anything that has shown us, it's the true colors of IMC. It's how they treat their player base. But enough with all the negativity, right? Can we actually say something good about the game? And to be honest, with all this negativity, I can go on forever about the failures of a pay-to-win game. But let's really talk about some of the good stuff and why this game is still good and whether or not it will survive 2021. TOS players, in other words, Tree of Savior in Korea, tends to be the main driver for international Tree of Savior. While the content differs in a few areas such as the amount of challenge mode vouchers you can obtain, the new content being pushed out is actually really insane. We have the Guillotine Raid, which is the final boss of the entire episodes 1 through 12 saga of the Goddess and Demons. And I'm very curious as to what the story will take us in the next few episodes. And it looks like it might be falling towards something very demonic. Outside of the raid itself, we finally have the episode 12 rewards, which tends to occur about 3 to 4 months from now. And we do have a new class, Scout and the Albert Courser. And new classes tend to come out on an annual basis, which is pretty good. It would be nicer if it could come out on a half-year basis, right? But unfortunately, you know, with the money they get, you would expect that, but it's not happening. Among the story, you have an amazing original soundtrack, and in my books, the OST is one of the best across any MMO I've played. IMC does consider player feedback when it comes to class balances. From the initial release, Swordsmen were the dominant, along with Scout. After the rebuild, Wizard became crazily OP. And now, for the first time ever, Scout and the Korean Tree of Savior is dominating the charts. Only because the synergy with Clown, a new class that was recently released. I can't say much to Monks and Clerics, But I can tell you there are a lot of physical DPS clerics out there that are really upset when it came to the balances for them. That being said, why is Nakmui in Swordsman class if it's a physical class? We're using Fist. Shouldn't that belong under the clerics class? Like, some of these things don't make sense. Whether it's a development versus cost benefit issue or a more deeper problem with class balances, IMC needs to take an interest, especially when it comes to monks. And I'm just putting that out there right now because it seems to be going through what the scout class has been going through. That is a identity crisis. What are you? In other words, what am I? But despite everything I've said so far, do you guys believe Tree of Savior will survive 2021? Is it really a pay-to-win game? Can you play this game for free truly? How far will you go before you give up or break away for another game? Let me know in the comments below, and I will see you all in the next video.